Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Be Weird broadcast. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are. I see we already getting spicy in the chat. Welcome to the stream, USA Freedom Truckers, or as we like to call it, Freedom! Here in this chat. How you doing, Dr. Gooley? So, yeah, I slept in. I definitely slept in. I am, waking up to the morning, coffee, trying to, wrap my head around the news and make sure that, I can deliver some good content. Crazy stuff has happened. The thing that's so reliable about the news is that shit do be popping off. So we're gonna check out some of that. And Canada is relevant, the leader of Ukraine, Zelenskyy, spoke at the Canadian House of Parliament. And so we're gonna check that out because although the main story is what the US Senate resolved, unanimously, surprisingly, that Putin is a war criminal, we're going to sneeze on stream. Oh God. We're going to dig into that a bit later. I'm really curious about what Zelenskyy said. I'm just pulling up the chat, fixing my levels. Yeah, all right. Okay. So I think it's 20 minutes long, about. Or maybe it's a bit longer than that. Gonna kill the music just as the song ends. And we got ourselves a pretty cloudy day here in Montreal. That's kind of the reason I slept in. It was just so dark. I couldn't believe it was 6 o'clock. This whole time shift has really messed me up. What can I say? Alrighty, everybody. Let's get into it.
Party leaders, honorable parliamentarians, distinguished guests, mesdames et messieurs, welcome to this extraordinary event, a joint address to Parliament by His Excellency Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine. I thank all those who have made it possible for us to hear from President Zelenskyy today, whether here in the chamber or by video link. J'invite maintenant le Premier ministre.
I now ask the Prime Minister to take the floor. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, chers parlementaires,
dear parliamentarians, friends and colleagues, good morning and thank you for being here today to welcome a courageous and exceptional leader.
Zelenskyy,
On behalf of parliamentarians and on behalf of all Canadians, it is an honor to welcome you to our House. Mr. President, Volodymyr, you are a friend. Canadians and Ukraine.
Also, USA Freedom Truckers, are you still in the chat, or did you just like drop into a random stream that triggered you, blasted off a bunch of wicked claims, and then fuck off because you don't actually want to try to back up or defend any of that stuff? I don't know. It was a pretty unhinged comment. I don't know, man.
Our friends, and they have been for a long time. Our people share deep historical ties. In the early 20th century, a massive wave of Ukrainian immigrants came to Canada. Many of them settled in the Canadian prairies. They worked the land. They built churches distinguished by their beautiful spires. And they helped shape Canada in significant ways. Notre pays compte aujourd'hui.
Today, there are 1.4 million Ukrainian Canadians in our country, making it the second largest Ukrainian diaspora in the world. Whether as farmers, producers, scientists, community leaders, athletes, or frontline workers, Ukrainian Canadians continue to make a tremendous contribution to our country. But the friendship between Canada and Ukraine is not only based on this shared history, it is also based on our shared values.
Volodymyr, in the years I've known you, I've always thought of you as a champion for democracy. And now, democracies around the world are lucky to have you as our champion.
Wow, that is a lot of applause. Is it like stuck or something? What is happening? This is on 1.5 speed. This is so much clapping. This is like the longest stand. He hasn't spoken yet. Wow, holy cow. This is a crazy standing ovation.
Your courage and the courage of your people inspires us all. You're defending the right of Ukrainians to
Fucking
choose
pins.
their own future. And in doing so, you're defending the values that form the pillars of all free, democratic countries.
This
Freedom.
is like libs are eating good today. Like they get to talk about liberal values and democracy, standing up against the authoritarian. It's a real David versus Goliath story, everybody. What's not to love?
Human rights, justice, truth, international order. These are the values you're risking your life for as you fight for Ukraine and Ukrainians. Beyond that, you're inspiring democracies and democratic leaders around the world to be more courageous, more united, and to fight harder for what we believe in. You remind us that friends are always stronger together. With allies and partners, we're imposing crippling sanctions to make sure Putin and his enablers in Russia and Belarus are held accountable. Today, in line with our European Union partners, I can announce that we have imposed severe sanctions on 15 new Russian officials, including government and military elites who are complicit in this illegal war. Canada
will continue to support Ukraine with military equipment, as well as financial and humanitarian assistance. And we will be there to help rebuild once the aggressor is repelled.
In Canada, we like to root for the underdog. We believe that when a cause is just and right, it will always prevail, no matter the size of the opponent.
Unless of course, you know, you're Indigenous in Canada and you're up against this government who's like, you know, suing. What was it? Like there was a recommendation made by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to provide a bunch of like reparations to Indigenous people who were victims of the 60s scoop. And the federal government took him to court to like negotiate over the number. Like, I don't know, you guys, 50 million, really? Something like that. It's really dumb.
Ukrainians are already paying incalculable human costs. This illegal and unnecessary war is a grave mistake, and Putin must stop it now. Le mépris.
Vladimir Putin's blatant disregard for human life is absolutely unacceptable. Canada continues to demand that Russia stop targeting civilians and end this unjustifiable war.
Ukrainians are standing up to authoritarianism. And as parliamentarians united in this House today, and all Canadians, we stand with you. As friends, you can count on our unwavering and steadfast support. And now, it is my great privilege to introduce to you all the President of Ukraine, our friend, Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Here. So I think I was wrong Canada apparently is the third highest amount of Ukrainians percentile wise. It's Ukraine, then Russia, then Canada, and that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I didn't realize that before.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, Prime Minister, dear Justin, members of the government, members of the parliament, all distinguished guests, friends. Before I begin, I would like you to understand my feelings and feelings of all Ukrainians, as far as it is possible. Our feelings over the last 20 days. 20 days of a full-scale aggression of Russian Federation after 8 years of fightings in Donbass region. Can you only imagine? Imagine that on 4 a.m., each of you, you start hearing bomb explosions, severe explosion. Justin, can you imagine hearing your children, hear all these severe explosions, bombing?
One of the things that the Ukrainians did to sort of really communicate this message of like the terror of being at war was, I think they put out like a promotional video where it was Paris, France, and then they like digitally put in like planes flying over, like bombing like Paris and stuff, just to be like, yo guys, imagine if your city got bombed. It's not a lot of fun.
Of airport, bombing of Ottawa airport, tens of other cities of your wonderful country. Can you imagine that? Cruise missiles are falling down on your terrain, and your children are asking you what happened, and you are receiving the first news, which infrastructure objects have been bombed and destroyed by Russian Federation. And you know how many people already died. Can you only imagine what words, how can you explain to your children that you just, full-scale aggression just happened in your country? You know that this is war to annihilate your state, your country. You know that this is the war to subjugate your people. And on second day, you receive notifications that huge columns of military equipment are entering your country, crossing the border. They're entering small cities. They are giving siege. They're encircling cities. And they start to shell civil neighborhoods. They bomb school buildings. They destroyed kindergarten facilities, like in our city, city of Sumy, like in the city of Ochtyrka. Imagine that someone is laying siege to Vancouver. Can you just imagine that for a second? And all these people who are left in such city. And this is exactly the situation that our city of Mariupol is suffering right now. And they are left without heat or hydro, or without means of communicating, almost without food.
Yeah, it's seriously fucked up in Mariupol. There was some reporting from the New York Times podcast, The Daily, with someone who is there, who took a very important picture that ended up on the front page of the New York Times. And it's pretty harrowing, actually. The recording that she left was shocking and scary.
Water, seeking shelter in bomb shelters. Dear Justin, dear guests, can you imagine that every day you receive memorandums about the number of casualties, including among women and children? You've heard about the bombings. Currently, we have 97 children that died during this war. Can you imagine? Famous CN Tower in Toronto. If it was hit by Russian bombs.
It's crazy.
Of course, I don't wish this on anyone, but this is our reality in which we live. We have to contemplate, we have to see where the next bombing will take place. Your Churchill Square, we have a Freedom Square in the city of Kharkiv. Our Babin Yar, the place where victims of Holocaust were buried, and it has been bombed by the Russians. Imagine that Canadian facilities have been bombed, similarly as our buildings and memorial places are being bombed. A number of families have died. Every night is a horrible night. Russians are shelling from all kinds of artillery, from tanks. They're hitting civilian infrastructure. They're hitting big buildings. Can you imagine that there is a fire starting at a nuclear power plant, and that's exactly what happened in our country. Each city that they are marching through, they're taking down Ukrainian flags. Can you imagine someone taking down your Canadian flags in Montreal and other Canadian cities? I know that you all support Ukraine.
We've been friends with you, Justin, but also I would like you to understand, and I would like you to feel this, what we feel every day. We want to live, and we want to be victorious. We want to prevail for the sake of life. Can you imagine when you call your friends, your friendly nation, and you ask, please close the sky, close the airspace, please stop the bombing. How many more cruise missiles have to fall on our cities until you make this happen?
So he's going to be making the same speech to raving applause. He's going to go to Canada. He's going to go to America. He's going to say the same thing. Please do air battles and stop the Russians from bombing us. And everyone's going to applaud him 100%, and no one's going to change anything.
And they, in return, they express their deep concerns about the situation. When we talk with our partners, and they say, please hold on a little longer.
Wait, what's going on?
Some people are talking about trying to avoid the escalation. And at the same time, in response to our aspiration to become members of NATO, we also do not hear a clear answer. Sometimes we don't see obvious things. It's a dire straits, but it also allowed us to see who our real friends are over the last 20 days, and as well 8 previous years. I'm sure that you've been able to see clearly what's going on, and I'm addressing all of you. Canada has always been steadfast in their support. You've been a reliable partner to Ukraine and Ukrainians, and I'm sure this will continue. You've offered your help, your assistance at our earliest request. You supply us with the military assistance, with humanitarian assistance. You've imposed serious sanctions. At the same time, we see that, unfortunately, they did not bring the end to the war. You can see that our cities like Kharkiv, Mariupol, and many other cities are not protected just like your cities are protected, Edmonton, Vancouver. You can see that Kyiv is being shelled and bombed, Ivano-Frankivsk.
Yeah, I think the real question right now is how long is this going to stay in the news cycle? Like, how long will the world care about Ukraine? I'm curious what that half-life is. I think Kim was making that point.
It used to be, we were a very peaceful country, peaceful cities, but now they're being constantly bombarded. Basically, what I'm trying to say that you all need to do more to stop Russia, to protect Ukraine, and by doing that, to protect Europe from Russian threat. They're destroying everything, memorial complexes, schools, hospitals, housing complex. They already killed 97 Ukrainian children. We're not asking for much. We're asking for justice, for real support, which will help us to prevail, to defend, to save life all of the world. Canada is leading in these efforts, and I'm hoping that other countries will follow the same suit. We're asking for more of your leadership, and please take more, greater part in these efforts. Justin and all of our friends of Ukraine, all friends of the truth, please understand how important it is for us to close our airspace from Russian missiles and Russian aircrafts. I hope you can understand. I hope you can increase your efforts. You can increase sanctions so they will not have a single dollar to fund their war effort. Commercial entities should not be working in Russia. Probably you know better than many in any other countries that this attack on Ukraine, it's their attempt to annihilate Ukrainian people, and there is nothing else to it. This is their main objective. It's actually the war against Ukrainian people. And it's an attempt to destroy everything that we as Ukrainians do. It's an attempt to destroy our future, to destroy our nation, our character. You Canadians, you know very well all this. That's why I'm asking you, please do not stop in your efforts. Please expand your efforts to bring back peace in our peaceful country. I believe, and I know that you can do it. We are part of the anti-war coalition, and jointly I'm sure that we'll achieve results. I would like to also ask our Ukrainian diaspora in Canada. This is a historical moment, and we need your support, your practical support. And we hope that with your practical steps, you will show that you are part of the modern Ukrainian history. Please.
Will Canada send warplanes to Ukraine? I don't know, you guys. Canada's not very good at war.
Remember, this is a practical, modern-day history of Ukraine. We want to live. We want to have peace. I'm grateful to every one of you in the Parliament of Canada who is present there, to every Canadian citizen. I am very grateful to you, Justin. I am grateful to Canadian people, and I'm confident that together we will overcome and we will be victorious. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you to Canada.
Okay, so yeah, I think it should be interesting to see what actually comes of this. What is Canada gonna do? Call Putin a war criminal? That's easy. Man, America's leading the way. It's crazy. Wow, that is so much applause. I could go to the washroom and come back by the time that applause is done. Oh my god, look at it go. Look at it go. Wow, this is honestly one of the longest applauses. Wow, what? I'm just gonna slow this down so you get a real sense for how long this is going on. Wow. Sheesh, that's content. Look at it go, everybody. Okay, maybe we'll skip the 5 minutes of applause. Who's this guy? Who cares about this guy? Yeah, we want to hear from Bergen, the conservative interim leader.
Leader of the official opposition to address us.
Perfect timing.
Mr. Speaker.
Just gonna go pee. Be back.
I would like to begin by first and foremost stating on behalf of my Conservative caucus our complete admiration and respect for the people and the nation of Ukraine. And to President Zelenskyy, let me express to you how much I admire your courage and your sacrificial leadership at this critical time in Ukraine's history. The kind of leadership that you are showing, sir, is very rare, and it serves as an inspiration to all of us who are elected. You are the leader of Ukraine for such a time as this, and we remain indebted to you. Monsieur le Président Zelenskyy.
President Zelensky, thank you for your leadership in this war against your country and your defense of democracy. The official opposition stands with Ukraine. It is our duty. We will also be there after this conflict in order to help you rebuild Ukraine. Your courage inspires us.
The images that we are seeing from Ukraine, as you described them, President, are heartbreaking and painful. Families huddled in bomb shelters, the ruins of a children's hospital and a maternity ward, the elderly who are trying to find their way to safety. But there is also inspiration as we watch ordinary people, men and women of all ages, defending their homeland. We are witnesses to the strength and the defiance of Ukrainians standing up for their freedom, their independence, and their sovereignty. Ukrainians aren't just fighting to defend themselves. Let's be very clear. They are defending all of Europe, because Putin's brutal attack on Ukraine is an attack on all of us. That's the lesson history has taught us, and one we cannot ignore. And it is why we must help the people of Ukraine in every way possible. Canada has the largest number of people of Ukraine descent outside of Ukraine and Russia. For a century, they have enriched our communities and our culture, especially in the Canadian prairies, which is where I am from. Canada, and Manitoba in particular, share ties with Ukraine that cannot be broken.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to watch the conservatives like do the lib shit and be like rah rah Ukraine, because there's just so many Ukrainians that are their constituents. They kind of have to.
And now, almost 1.4 million Ukrainian Canadians are watching what is happening. Their hearts and their souls are reaching out, hoping, praying for the nation and the people of their forebears. This war of naked aggression has revealed Vladimir Putin for what he really is, a warmonger and a violent predator with no regard for human life and suffering. He has crossed lines that after 2 world wars we thought would never be crossed, and he's shaken the rule-based order that has kept millions safe since 1945. Every day he tells the world lies, and then he proceeds to kill innocent and vulnerable Ukrainians, including women and children. And while on his rampage, he continues to threaten the world, saying if he doesn't get his way, he will use the worst extremes possible. It's sickening to watch. Putin must be brought to justice. He must be held to account for his crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court at The Hague.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Bring Putin to The Hague. Yeah, that gets a round applause.
This is not just a war against Ukraine, it is a war against the free democratic world. We must stand with Ukraine. It is not a choice, it is a moral duty. Canada was the first country to recognize Ukraine's independence from the Soviet Union. Now it's time to honor that legacy. We must do more, together with our allies, to secure Ukraine's airspace. We need to protect...
Let's see if we
We
can
need to
skip this up.
protect, at a minimum, the airspace over the humanitarian corridors so that Ukrainians can seek safe passage away from the war zones and to allow humanitarian relief to reach those areas under siege. Canada must do whatever it can to cut through any red tape and welcome Ukrainians who are fleeing, although we all know that what Ukrainians want most is to be able to live in their home nation, free, sovereign, and peaceful. President Zelenskyy, I want to reassure you that Canada will be a safe haven for Ukraine citizens who choose to come here until the battle is over. While they are in Canada, we will cherish them, care for them, provide for them purpose and hope, and when it is time, they will return to their beloved Ukraine and their families. This is our pledge to you. To the people of Ukraine, let me conclude by saying simply, Canadians support you today as you face Putin and his reckless empire building. Conservatives stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, and we will continue to support you when this terrible conflict finally ends and you rebuild your homes and communities. Your courage and faith and your fortitude in the face of adversity are an inspiration to all of us. Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep hoping. Thank you.
What's Blanchet
Speaker?
gonna say? Oh, dang. I was just thinking, like, earlier, just how lovely and eloquent he is in French, and how, like, because of this English translation, you can't really tell the difference between Blanchet and Trudeau. Trudeau's got, like, this really, like, government style, like, strict and clean French, whereas Blanchet, it's very much more, like relatable and more similar to how, like, the average Quebecois talks. It's quite a wild ride to listen to him talk. He's quite the speaker.
Esteemed colleagues, Mr. Speaker, and especially Mr. President, it is difficult for me today to express myself in simple words that cannot carry or express all the sadness, all the indignation, or the anger roused by the dirty war inflicted on your great nation, on your great people. It is difficult for me to admit to a certain powerlessness as well, a powerlessness to do much more than express our compassion, our desire, which is only a shadow of yours, to wake us all up from this nightmare that inhabits our screens on a daily basis. Of course, the Quebec nation, it is safe to say, I believe, is massively behind you, massively behind your people. Of course, we have asked and support the will that Canada act in the only valid way, in concert with the free countries of this world, and with major international organizations, whether economic, military, or humanitarian. Of course, we also call for ever more severe economic sanctions. This, so that it is from within Russia itself, through balanced negotiations, that this senseless aggression will come to an end. We strongly urge the Canadian government to ease the obstacles to welcoming refugees from Ukraine. In Quebec and in Canada, there are people, there are families, there's the diaspora that wishes to welcome these refugees.
Yeah, this is like the federal representative for Quebec. They have like their own federal party for reasons. And the provincial leader, I'm just blanking on his name. I can see his face too. François Legault. He said basically Quebec will take an infinite amount of Ukrainians, just like all the refugees, all the migrants, just come on down.
We also need a humanitarian bridge between your territory and ours. It is with dismay that we have also heard your call for more weapons. You are entitled to them. You need them. The Quebec nation is peaceful. The Ukrainian nation is peaceful. I am convinced that it is with reluctance that you have asked for these weapons. Your people have the right to defend those they love. They have the right to defend this land that is theirs. So yes, Mr. President, let's arm the Ukrainians rapidly and more significantly. Mr. President, all this is still too little. Too little every time a man, a woman, or a child dies, every time a hospital, a daycare centre, a school, a park, or even a single flower is destroyed. Every time, Mr. President, every time we are told
Yeah, I feel
that we have
like
done too little.
I feel like we've gotten everything we need to get from this. We don't have to watch the whole clip. I was mostly interested in what Zelenskyy had to say and what the reception was at Parliament, and basically everyone's like unanimously in approval. So let's move on. This is from Reuters. The U.S. Senate unanimously condemns Putin as a war criminal, everybody. He is a war criminal. That's right. He do be criming. All right. So that's fun. I gotta stop using Reuters. They're not letting me read their shit. U.S. Senate on Tuesday unanimously passed a resolution condemning Russian President Vladimir Putin as a war criminal, a rare show of unity in the deeply divided Congress. The resolution, introduced by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, of all people, and backed by senators of both parties, encouraged the International Criminal Court in The Hague and other nations to target the Russian military in any investigation of war crimes committed during Russia's invasion of Ukraine. All of us in this chamber joined together with Democrats and Republicans to say that Vladimir Putin cannot escape accountability for the atrocities committed against the Ukrainian people, Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a speech on the Senate floor ahead of the vote. Russia calls its actions a, quote, special military operation, everybody. It's just a special military operation. It's not a war. To demilitarize with all their army and denazify Ukraine through violence and bloodshed. Putin has also called the country a U.S. colony with a puppet regime and no tradition of independent statehood. Moscow has not captured any of the 10 biggest cities in the country following its incursion that began on February 24th, the largest assault on a European state since 1945. Cool. Sounds good. Awesome. Sternly worded letters are being drafted, and they're bipartisan, everybody. Can you believe it? The signatures come from both sides of the aisle. So Russia and Ukraine looking for compromise in peace talks?
Some Ukrainian troops who have battled Russian forces have ended up at Mykolaiev's Central A&E hospital and are now receiving emergency care for their wounds. These soldiers were able to push back the Russians slightly from the regional capital, which they had been trying to seize. A Ukrainian soldier named Dima described his...
I don't think we can show blood. Oh, we definitely can't show this. Definitely can't show this. Okay, so yeah, shit do be popping off. This was the reason I brought this up. About 20,000 flee Mariupol in private cars, Ukraine, so people got out. But hundreds of thousands still trapped in the city. Jesus. UK says Russian forces struggling to make progress. Ukraine president says peace talks more realistic, which is a good sign because I think they started off with Putin being like, give us your government. We just want your government. Just yoink your government. U.S. president to meet with NATO leaders. So that's interesting. Some hope for compromise from Sergei Lavrov with neutral status for Ukraine, a major Russian demand now on the table. Yeah, so this was something that was pretty surprising to me, was apparently Ukraine concedes that they will not join NATO.
Зрозуміло, що Україна не є членом НАТО, ми це розуміємо, ми адекватні люди. Роками ми чули про нібито відкриті двері, але вже почули також, що нам туди не увійти, і це правда, і треба це визнавати. Я радий, що наш народ починає це розуміти і розраховувати на себе і на наших партнерів, які нам допомагають. Буде спрямовано проти Європи, якщо Україна не витримає. Тому я дуже вас прошу, допомагайте собі через те, що допомагаєте нам. Ви знаєте, якої зброї ми потребуємо, всі знають. Ви знаєте, яких засобів захисту ми потребуємо, ви знаєте, що нам життєво необхідно.
This is interesting because Jen Psaki, the White House press correspondent, was arguing with reporters the other day saying like, oh yeah, our internal assessments say they got plenty of planes. They got all the planes they need. They just got to use their planes.
Літаки. І без ваших зусиль нам було би вкрай складно. Я вам вдячний ще раз, але зрозумійте, ми потребуємо ще.
So yeah, it looks like the path for Ukraine is independence against foreign aggression. At least 5 people were killed in the latest artillery barrage on Kyiv, prompting its city hall to impose a 35-hour curfew from Tuesday night amid further signs that the focus of the Russian campaign has shifted to the destruction of residential areas and civilian infrastructure. So if there's like a 35-hour curfew, what do you do if your residence gets bombed? Like, what the fuck? Made his remarks about NATO while addressing leaders from the new Joint Expeditionary Force, a UK-led initiative bringing together 10 North Atlantic countries to create a capability for responding rapidly to crises. I've never heard about that before. The Joint Expeditionary Force. Curious. Alexei Navalny says he predicts that the war with Ukraine, quote, planned by crazy old men, will lead to the collapse of Russia, according to the Kyiv Independent. So that's interesting. This was a video that surfaced. It shows probably one of the residential blocks that we saw get hit the other day, just at night.
The fire trucks and the ambulance that finally arrived here. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's really a nightmare.
Yeah, no kidding. Holy cow. Ukraine officials tell of artillery battles outside Kyiv overnight on Wednesday. This is from Ukraine Forum. UK, I don't know how to say that. Ukraine Forum. Over the night, the Ukrainian army ran offensive operations outside the country's capital, having destroyed a sufficient number of the enemy's military equipment and manpower. This was stated by Denisenko, an advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs. A correspondent reports, quote, this night there were artillery battles as all night the Ukrainian army conducted offensive operations. Throughout the night, those living in Kyiv in its western part, especially in nearby towns, could not help but hear this. As of now, from what I can say, in general, everything is going well. That's in general. I will be speaking very carefully. We have destroyed a lot of military equipment, plenty of manpower. More accurate data will be released a bit later by the general staff, but as of now, I'd say that the operation is generally going well, Denisenko said. I mean, will they say anything other than that? Like, do you even want to tell news broadcasters that things didn't go well? You'd only tell people the good stuff, right? A 4th Russian general has been killed in the fighting, apparently. That is the Poland prime minister, for some reason. This is the caption. That's not the Russian general. Ukraine said, so according to Ukraine, a 4th Russian general has been killed in the fighting. Major General Oleg Mityev died Tuesday during the storming of Mariupol, said Ukrainian Interior Ministry advisor Gerashenko, who published a photo on Telegram of what he said was the dead officer. Zelenskyy reported the death of another Russian general in his nighttime address, but didn't name him. Mitiev, 46, commanded the 150th Motorized Rifle Division and had fought in Syria, Gerachenko said. There is no confirmation of the death from Russia. So here are the big developments. U.S. President Biden will travel to Europe next week for face-to-face talks with European leaders about the Russian invasion. Russia has stepped up its bombardment of Kyiv as a series of strikes hit a residential neighborhood in the capital city. I think we saw that yesterday. We'll look at it again. The EU has imposed new sanctions, including measures that target Chelsea soccer club owner Roman Abramovich. Yeah, that was the name that was being bandied about in the early days of the war. Like, how does this guy still get to own a British soccer club? The leaders of 3 European Union countries have traveled to Kyiv. Fox News says 2 of its journalists were killed in Ukraine when the vehicle he was traveling in was struck by incoming fire. And I think I have that here. This is a pretty fucked up story. This is the second journalist
Earlier today,
to die.
we shared with you the news that our colleague, Pierre Zhashevsky, was killed while reporting with Benjamin Hall outside of Kyiv. We can now confirm that another journalist died in that same attack. Alexandra Sasha Kushnova died alongside Pierre when incoming fire hit their vehicle. She was just 24 years old. This photo shows her with Pierre and our correspondent Trey Yingst. Sasha was serving as a consultant for us in Ukraine. Fox News Media CEO Suzanne Scott says Sasha was helping our teams navigate the city, gather news, and speak with sources. Working around the clock, she helped to share Ukraine's story with the world, and we are grateful to her for that.
Look at his left
Our
fist
correspondent
in that photo. Look at his left fist. It is just tightly wound. This is a very tense situation. Or maybe
and
it's
our
just an
producers
off-frame.
say she was hardworking, funny, kind,
fucked
and
up,
brave, which you have to be to do this kind of work. We delayed delivering the news of her death out of respect for her family. We offer them the deepest condolences and gratitude for her work. And we ask you to think of them, to keep them in your prayers as they struggle with the loss of their young daughter, just 24 years old, doing courageous, courageous work. Of course, along with the family of Pierre and so many others who have lost
Look at that
loved
mustache.
ones during the war. We will miss him, and we are grateful for the extraordinary work and the opportunity to work with him over the years as well. And we await more news, which we will share with you when we can, on the condition of our Benjamin Hall.
Yikes. Yeah, that's really not good. I think this is why it's so easy just to condemn Russia, because they really are just fucking up. Not good, everybody. Here's part of Zelenskyy's video from, I think, an hour. This should be pretty recent. Oh, is it actually? Of course. Can't actually speak Ukrainian. Ukraine sees room for compromise as 20,000 escape Mariupol. Wow, what a picture. Oh my God. An elderly woman is helped by policemen after she was rescued by firefighters from inside her apartment after bombing in Kyiv. March 15th. Russia's offensive in Ukraine has edged closer to central Kyiv with a series of strikes hitting a residential neighborhood as the leaders of 3 European Union member countries plan to visit to Ukraine's embattled capital. Firefighters climb a ladder while working to extinguish a blaze in a destroyed apartment building after a bombing in a residential area in Kyiv. Russia's offensive in Ukraine. Yeah, so it's going to be the same sort of text. I'm just going to move this up to the top where it belongs. This is Associated Press, by the way. Civilians continue to be evacuated from Sumy in Ukraine as part of an ongoing operation by the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Ukrainian Red Cross Society. That is a lot of people.
The dimensions of this humanitarian catastrophe is just incomprehensible. We have people, civilians in the hundreds trying to load these buses, and we would try to escort this convoy across the lines and bring them back into some kind of safety.
Two convoys of 80 buses. Yo, that's a lot of people. Whoa. Military cadets attend a funeral ceremony for 4 of the Ukrainian military servicemen who were killed during an airstrike in a military base in Yerokhiv, in a church in Lviv, Ukraine. At least 35 people were killed and many wounded in Sunday's Russian missile strike on a military base near Ukraine's western border with NATO member Poland. Yeah, that strike freaked out a lot of people because it was a hair's breadth away from causing outright war. Those are some grim faces, man, just ashen, all young. Ukrainian servicemen carry a washing machine as they help to relocate goods from a destroyed market in Kharkiv. So I guess it's just like a salvage operation. Oh my goodness. People who fled the war rest inside an indoor sports stadium being used as a refugee center in the village of Medica, a border crossing between Poland and Ukraine. And there she is trying to do her laundry. Looks like it's in a baby basket. Yikes. That is tightly squeezed. It's a good way viruses to spread. Needs to get the flu. Firefighter comforts a woman outside a destroyed apartment building after a bombing in a residential area in Kyiv, Ukraine. Russia's offensive in Ukraine has edged closer to central Kyiv. People attend a funeral ceremony. Yeah, it's another one of those photos. A Ukrainian woman, Olga, 25, and her child, Svatoslav, 2, who fled the war from Poltava region in Ukraine, wait at Przemysl train station on their way to Germany. That's a Polish word. Volunteers and Ukrainian refugees sort donations at the clothing store in Hamburg, Germany. The Arbeiter Samariterbund organizes Hamburg's largest clothing store through its Hamburg Mitte chapter. The special thing about this project is that the Ukrainian war refugees and the Hamburg volunteers together fill and sort the clothing store and look for suitable items of clothing for the refugees among the numerous donations. Wow, that is... I mean, leave it to the Germans to figure out how to organize donations. They'll figure it out. Yeah, that attack on the block is pretty fucked up. Yeah, that's super fucked up. Okay. There are fears that Russia will not be able to pay its debts mount. That's really bad. Fears Russia will not be able to pay its debts mount. Fears mount. Russia will not be able to pay its debts. There you go. Fucking Jesus, what's happened to headlines in the past 5 years? Russia may be about to default on its debts after Western sanctions were imposed in the wake of its invasion of Ukraine. It is due to make $117 million in interest payments to investors on $2 denominated bonds today. But Russia's access to $630 billion of foreign currency reserves has now been frozen. Credit ratings agencies have warned that a debt default is imminent. The IMF has said, while it is concerned about the impact of any Russian debt default, it does not believe this would trigger a global financial crisis. Why might Russia not be able to pay the debt? Firms such as Gazprom, Lukoil, and Sberbank owe about $150 billion to overseas investors. Sorry, the Russian government and firms such as these three, which is like 2 oil and gas companies and a bank, owe about $150 billion to overseas investors. Most of this is in dollars or euros, and Russian institutions are now barred from accessing dollar or euro assets that are held abroad because of sanctions. If it does default, it would be the country's first default since 1998. It would also be its first default on a foreign currency debt since the 1917 revolution, when the new Bolshevik government refused to recognize the debts of the last Tsar. Amazing. I don't know enough about Russian history, Jesus. If Russia pays in rubles, is this still a default? The government may decide to pay with dollars that are actually held in Russia. Whilst it can't access dollars held overseas, it does have some dollars held domestically. If that were to happen, then default worries would go away for now. Another possibility is that Russia does not pay today. Even though the $117 million is due today, technically there's a 30-day grace period to finally settle the bill by 15th of April. A third option is where Russia pays in rubles. Its foreign ministry has said it would make payments to international investors in rubles if it were stopped from paying them in dollars or euros. However, neither of the $2 denominated bonds, which need to be paid today, allow for any other currency to be used. Oops. So this would trigger a default. Some of Russia's other debt agreements do allow for different currencies to be used, in which case paying in rubles could be acceptable. Yeesh. I thought you were poor. Imagine an entire country being super poor. So yeah. Okay, everybody. We're coming to the end of the stream, so I'm switching gears. I'm doing a poetry slam. I'm running a poetry slam, I should say. I might even be hosting it. This Sunday, Theatre St. Catherine. If you're in Montreal, come out. It's going to be a banger. We got this literal professor of literature. I don't know how it gets any better than that. Hector Ruiz. And yeah, it's going to be great. Come out. It's going to be bilingual, English and French. It's part of what I do here is I do poetry slams. I run poetry slams in the city. And so yeah, if you know anybody who lives in Montreal, tell them to check out the Throw Poetry Collective. We got ourselves a pretty awesome show coming up in the future. I'm looking forward to it. I've got a wicked headache. I haven't eaten. I slept in. So yeah, I'm gonna end stream a bit early. I'll be back Friday, and otherwise, y'all have a lovely day. Y'all keep it cool, and I'll see you later, everybody. Bye. Bye.